Welcome to the Coffee Club, broadcasting live from New York with your host, Felix, and co-host, Dr. Marc. So let's have a cup of coffee and enjoy the show.
There is no heaven. There is no hell. There is only this world and its dark reflections.
There is no heaven. There is no hell. There is only this world and its dark reflection. And we do not know in which of the two worlds we are.
We are calling you live. We are live from New York.
At least Felix and I are, but
we're sort of alive.
We've been having trouble for the last 40 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Some of our loyal callers have called in on the phone to say that they can hear us, but we couldn't hear them, so we're trying an alternate way of broadcasting to you. There is so much to discuss today.
In so little time, as they say.
And I don't even know where to begin. The world, of course, is in shock over the apparent, and I say apparent, suicide of Robin Williams, who has been dealing with alcohol and drug problems for many years, along with depression. I feel like I said this to Felix and my wife, I feel like I've lost my brother, because we can all identify with situations that Robin had been talking about. And by the mere fact that we refer to him by his first name. He truly was a comedic genius, but I think he was not recognized for the dramatic roles that he played.
He won an Academy Award, didn't he?
Well, he won an Academy Award for Good Will Hunting as a supporting actor, but he should have won the Academy Award for Dead Poets Society, which is by far my all-time favorite movie, for obvious reasons, being a retired English teacher. To have that kind of effect on a class, what can I say? He, as James Lipton said today on the news, he literally wore his expressions and his feelings on his sleeve. Some people say they didn't really know Robin Williams, but the truth is, what you saw on The Tonight Show and in interviews and on his stand-up shows was Robin Williams. His self-deprecating humor. I know when I used to teach, I used to do things like that, and at least it got the point across to my class. I was not adverse to being the brunt of jokes. Most of the time they were my own, something I think that most people really can't handle. When you hear Jack Nicholson say you can't handle the truth, well, the bottom line is most people can't stand hearing other people say things about them, but if they were being honest, they would listen or say them about themselves. I remember my mom, may she rest in peace, what she said when Toady Fields passed away, because my mom looked at Toady Fields as a sister, and she said, I feel like I lost a sister. Well, today I feel like I lost my brother. Obviously, this was going to preempt everything else we were going to talk about, but if you read our blurb, we were going to talk about a world gone amok, ISIS and ISIL. Reports today of the mass killings of children for no apparent reasons. We already know about beheadings. But the news about Robin Williams certainly would fit into this whole area of the world going amok. People can't handle their own problems. We can't handle the world's problems. I find myself, and Felix will tell you, I find myself at a loss for words, and that's really something for me to be at a loss of anything when it comes to words.
Marc, you're never lost for words. And also our condolences to the family, and
of course,
it's a sad day.
James Lipton said that he was a genius. He said there are very few people that you can call comedic geniuses or dramatic geniuses. And he said Robin Williams, and it's funny because the other name that came to my mind was Billy Crystal. And then James Lipton said Mike Myers, These are people who you can give them a situation and they can give you 15 minutes, a 15-minute skit right off the top of their head. They don't even have to think about anything, and they're right on the money. Robin Williams could identify with children. It's not like he had to switch hats. You know, he could come down to their level, all right, and speak to them just like another kid. The fact that when he played the genie in Aladdin, there was no script. They just let him do his own thing, and then they created the genie to work around the things that Robin Williams said. You know, Felix, what are you feeling right now?
Well, I feel sad for the family, but the family asked everybody to remember him for what he was, not what he is now.
Not for the way he died. That's true.
Exactly.
You know, I've always said, you know, and it's difficult for people to comprehend. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Let me say that again. Suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. Your life can be to you depressing, but there is a solution. Suicide is never the answer, all right? It just leaves those living with questions that go unanswered. You know, I remember when Robert Downey Jr. was struggling with his bouts of depression and drug addiction at the very beginning, before he reinvented himself, obviously before all these Iron Man movies, etc. And he was in front of Los Angeles County Court judge, and he was crying, and he said, "You have no idea the hold and the control that being a drug addict has on someone." And I guess, not being an addict myself, I can't put myself in that place, but I can only feel for someone who is driven to tears and depression because they feel that there's no way that they could overcome this. And certainly people like Robin Williams, Robert Downey Jr., who thank God is still alive, you know, they have the means to try to pull themselves up, but, you know, the drugs keep drawing them right back in, and the alcohol.
They said that one of Robin Williams' best friends, and I believe I got this right, was Jonathan Winters. They said the two of them would just ad-lib on their own, kidding around in their house.
Oh, I've seen, well, I've, as I'm sure you have, I've seen them on, you know, entertainment shows, and the two of them just, you know, hit off each other. You know, Robin Williams is very quick to credit somebody like Jonathan Winters, who also had bouts of depression, and addiction, as his mentor. Jonathan Winters was another one who could, on the spur of the moment, give you a 15-minute skit, you know, and go into a routine.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm talking about. He would just go visit Jonathan Winters. They'd go into the attic of the house and just start doing skits on their own. You know, and again, Jonathan Winters was his mentor, and it was his idol in certain ways. But he's a little older, I guess, Jonathan Winters. Was he still alive?
No. Jonathan Winters is dead.
Okay, I wasn't sure. But
Jonathan Winters would have been well into his 70s right now, I believe, if not older. Okay. You know, one can only wonder what Whoopi Goldberg and Billy Crystal are thinking. You know, for many years back in the 80s, the three of them, Robin Williams, Whoopi Goldberg, and Billy Crystal did the HBO special for I forgot the title, but they would do a comedy special for about 3 or 4 hours on you know, raising food and money for homeless, and you know, I know that they were very, very close. I'm sure within the next few hours, certainly into tomorrow, we'll hear what Billy Crystal has to say, and certainly Whoopi Goldberg. If The View is not on hiatus for the summer, I'm not even sure because I don't watch the show, we'll have something to say about the passing of Robin Williams.
Okay, before we forget, we'd like to hear from our audience tonight. If you're still listening, our phone number
Do we even have an audience anymore?
Our phone number is 646-595-3275. We're also going to open up our chat room, which I don't see being open. So I'm going to open up the chat room.
There is no heaven. There is no hell. There is only this world and its dark reflection.
I think this guy has it right
and we
tonight.
do not know in which of the two worlds we are.
You know, that's so true. I mean, we honestly, the way the show has been going today, we don't even know which world we're in.
Are we broadcasting or are we not broadcasting?
If somebody's out there, the number is 646-595-3275, so please give us a call. Let us know what's going on. As I said, we lost about 40 minutes, and Felix and I are broadcasting in a rather unusual way. We are using a speaker phone as opposed to a Spreaker phone, but we're using a speaker phone here, the two of us. We have a caller coming in.
Okay, let's go grab this call before we lose it. Hello there. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh my heavens!
Yeah,
who's this?
This is Charlie from Colorado.
Charlie, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Nice to meet you finally.
Yeah. Ann's been calling in on the religious, but on the politics, I don't know. The question of the evening is something that I think could never be resolved. This is a conflict that's been going on for hundreds of years, and how could anybody really resolve it? They kill each other.
And especially when you look at ISIS, I mean, they are making no distinction. They're killing women and children in such brutal ways, and for what purpose? They're certainly not gaining any support from the ordinary person by doing things like this.
Actually, they are. Everybody's supporting them because they don't want to get killed.
They actually 1,000 people have joined ISIS in the last 2 weeks, was the report today.
Wow.
And
they've got over 1,000 Westerners that joined ISIS with Western passports. They've got over 18,000 people now in ISIS.
Exactly, and growing by the day. You just look at it and say, they kill women, they kill children, they kill Christians, they kill Muslims. So really, what is their purpose?
Their purpose is to have a state or a nation that is exactly like them. Exactly. In other words, there is no wiggle room. There's no room for any independent thought or belief. You have to believe the way they do. Otherwise, you have no business drawing a breath.
You know that Al-Qaeda denounced them?
Yeah, from the beginning.
Absolutely.
They said that they are too radical even for them.
Yeah, I know.
Imagine that.
Who would have ever thought that? Who would have ever thought that somebody would, Al-Qaeda would say...
Well, but by the same token, I see no one but the U.S. trying to do something about it. If Al-Qaeda, and they're right there, they're embedded right there, if they think that ISIS and ISIL are such a threat, they don't have to join with the West. They can act on their own to try to do something about this. I mean, who can stand by and watch the butchering of children? It's like, I'm saying this because as I'm saying this, I'm thinking about Newtown, Connecticut, with the killing of the 26 children and 6 teachers. And we couldn't even get gun legislation passed with the murder of those innocent children. Okay, so it doesn't surprise me that all we hear so far is rhetoric about ISIS, but nobody except the U.S. is doing anything about it.
And they're not doing much of anything either.
Well,
but what are we actually doing? We dropped a couple of bombs. We make it look good.
We're not doing anything.
we can't do it alone. You know, Charlie. We're getting no support.
I agree
Everybody
with you.
says, I know.
Well,
I agree with that point.
Also...
We can't do it alone, but, you know, even if NATO was to get involved, the UN, they'll just pop up somewhere else. They're in Syria. They're not just in Iraq. They're everywhere. They're here in the U.S. One guy got stopped today at the airport. I don't know which airport it was. I heard just a quick segment on it on the news today. And ISIS trying to get into the United States today.
Well, like you said before, the frightening part is if they have at least 1,000 new recruits, and many of them with Western...
No, there are over 1,000 Western recruits.
Wait, that's what I'm saying. Let me finish.
Yeah,
Let me finish. The point is that they have a passport that would allow them to come in. Any one of these people can do an act of terror and go unnoticed. So it's, you know, it's not like they have Middle Eastern names where a flag would go up. And I'm not saying it should, because in a way that's profiling. But the point is, somebody with my name can come in and you wouldn't know it, and somebody like me, not me, I wouldn't do it, please, but just an ordinary person, and commit an act of terror. And there's no tracking that down. There's no preventing it unless you have, you know, some information.
Well, I'm sure they have a good idea who a lot of the Westerners that are fighting there are.
The frightening thing to me is when they broke it down, they said that there are some 36 people with American passports out of the 1,000 who have joined the ranks of ISIS.
Well, they could be members of Islam, you know, or Muslims. You know, they're just because they're Americans, they could also be Muslims. So, you know.
Well,
you know, everybody wants to say, well, the U.S. has to do something and UN has to do something. We've been arguing. I mean, with Israel and Gaza, we've been trying to do what we can for as long as I'm old. I remember back when Arafat in the day, and they're still fighting over that same piece of land. So unless their own people stand up and fight against these terrorists, you know, what could you possibly do?
Well, the sad part is the Kurds.
How much more of my tax dollars are you going to take to fight these people?
Well, no, they're just like everybody else. They want us to supply them with arms.
I said, but the Kurds are caught in the middle between the Shia and the Sunni. They want their own country. They don't want to have any part of any of that.
Yeah, but they've always also supported the United States.
Yeah.
They're staunch supporters. And, you know, they will fight.
Well, they are. They're the ones that are up on top of that mountain. You know, where the U.S. is dropping supplies and water. You know, humanitarian support.
Oh, they're not up there, but what they're trying to do is, but the thing is, the U.S. wouldn't give them any arms. You know,
well, they said they dropped some arms today. The U.S. was actually giving them support with.
And I think, Felix, didn't you say something earlier about Bill O'Reilly? What Bill O'Reilly said about this?
He said 4 months ago, that this is going to happen, Bill O'Reilly. And, you know, we don't think that highly of Bill O'Reilly, especially Marc, but he played a tape 4 months ago saying exactly what's going to happen and saying that the U.S. and nobody else is going to do anything about it.
Well, because Bill O'Reilly felt that at the time we should have bombed the hell out of these people.
Yep.
Wipe them off the face of the earth, because all they're going to do is multiply like a virus.
You know, they're worse than Ebola. They spread faster, and they're more lethal.
Well, if you really want to laugh, I mean, I don't know if you heard this, Charlie, but Sarah Palin was quoted as saying that she feels terrible for the people of Ebola, okay, with the virus, I mean, just goes to show, I mean, this is a person who was almost vice president of the United States.
Mark, you hear all these things. I never hear them anywhere. Where do you hear these things?
I'm retired. I watch a lot of news. What can I tell you? But, imagine that. We had Dick Cheney who said it's okay to torture, and that he broke the law so many times, and he made so much money on the war in the Middle East through Halliburton, even though he had to divest of his shares. On one hand we have him and with the Republican Party, and then you have Sarah Palin. Whatever happened to the moderates? That's what I want to know. Whatever happened
to
the
no
people
more
who could work across the aisle? You're right.
There are no
work
more
across the aisle. And I also blame Democrats too for not being able to do that.
Well, nobody wants to do anything. There were over 300 bills passed by the Congress that were never voted on in the Senate.
Well, didn't they try to name a post office after you, Felix?
Yeah, that didn't work neither. But there was over 300 bills that the Congress passed, and none of them made it to the floor. What's his name?
Boehner.
No, not Boehner. Your buddy in the Democrat.
Oh, Harry Reid.
He killed all of them.
Well,
he's as bad as anybody else.
Hey, listen, you heard what I just said. I just said that I also blame Democrats as well, because there's no one who wants to meet in the middle anymore.
I'm not saying those 300 some of the bills were progressive or I don't know what they were, but nobody even put them up for vote in the Senate, which is not right neither. It's supposed to be a democracy. Congress is supposed to put out a possible law or whatever, and the Senate's supposed to vote on it. In Congress,
you have somebody like Louis Gohmert from Texas, Michelle Bachmann from Minnesota. Every time, or this guy Blake Farenthold, every time these people open their mouths, it's almost embarrassing to say to yourself that they were elected to Congress. People actually sent them to Washington.
Well, also, actually, a lot of the Tea Party people were beaten in the primaries this time around. A lot of them didn't make it.
Well, I just wonder, let's assume, that the Democrats win the presidency again in 2016. All right? Let's also assume, the way it's going now, that the Republicans are going to win the Senate in 2014, and that way they'll have the complete Congress.
Mm-hmm.
All right? Let's see if they could do any better. Okay? Let's see if they would be willing, and let's say that even in 2016, they still control both houses with an opposing president in office. Let's see if they could work together.
Well, what's going to happen is they're going to put out laws, and the president's going to veto them all.
Well, but if the Republican Party has control in House and Senate, all they need is a 2/3 vote to override the veto.
It's very hard to override a veto. You can't get 2/3 of Congress to agree on anything.
Felix,
except it's time to go on vacation.
Felix, you and I can't agree.
Yeah.
And we're only two people.
That's true.
My wife and I can't agree.
Well, Charlie, can you agree with your wife?
Yeah, my wife's here. I agree with her.
Well, can you
on most things?
You always agree with most things.
Well, you know why? Charlie, how old are you?
Well, she's sitting right next to me, so I have to agree.
You see, now you sound like a husband. Okay.
No, it's
Rodney Henny Youngman was right when he said, "Take my wife, please." Back in the day.
Yeah. But I can't see why other countries are not even looking to help the people up in the mountains there, and I don't see why other countries are not looking to help.
Because they know they can't win. The people of those other countries don't want to get involved because it's a waste of time. This has been going on for hundreds of years, not just with ISIS. It's all of them.
Well, it's funny. When Saddam Hussein was in charge, You didn't have this kind of massacres. He may have been bad, but he was nowhere near this. I mean, unfortunately, dictators were kinder to the people than these revolutionaries are.
Especially, when you talk about the Middle East, places like Egypt, Iraq, Iran, Syria, they did a lot. They don't know from democracy, okay? For them, George Bush said we should spread democracy wherever possible, but some countries just can't handle democracy.
I mean,
it's like Jack Nicholson, you can't handle the truth. The bottom line is they need a military general or a dictator to rule them.
I mean, we were the root of all these problems. We started all this stuff.
Yeah, by trying to democratize all of these countries.
We go into Iraq for no reason. We butt into Afghanistan. If we didn't butt into Afghanistan, probably Bin Laden wouldn't have tried to blow up our...
Hey, listen, all I have to say is Vladimir Putin is sitting in his chair laughing right now because he knows that back in 1980, Russia learned their lesson, and here it is 34 years later, and we're still playing the same game, only instead of Russia, it's the United States that's in Afghanistan.
And not only that, he's Ukraine, and he's just flying under the radar now. He's just moving along.
Or as Felix likes to say, he has the backing of most of the Ukrainian citizens.
Who?
Putin.
I never said that.
Yes, you did.
I said he has most of the backing.
Because they were Russian descent.
No, he has backing of the people in Russia. Putin. He's loved in Russia.
Well, that's true.
And no, the only part of he's got some people, some supporters in eastern Ukraine. The rest of Ukrainians hate him.
Well,
and they're actually making some progress fighting against them right now. I know you're a registered Democrat, but I'd say you're not a progressive. Would that be good to say, Charlie?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you something. I'm a progressive, and
you're not a registered Democrat.
Yes, I am.
Oh, you are.
I sure am. I'm a card-carrying member of the ACLU.
Oh my heavens!
But I have news for you. There are certain things where I draw the line, and as far as I would move from the left. I would move toward the middle if it meant, reaching over and shaking somebody's hand and working together to sponsor a bill, get something done. I mean, thinking now about the United States, how many people do we have working 2 or 3 part-time jobs because they can't find a full-time job? They have to pay out of their pocket for medical care because their employers can't afford to cover them. So we have the Affordable Care Act. How many people are still unemployed, and Congress refuses to extend benefits to them? You can't raise the minimum. They refuse to raise the minimum wage. I mean, these are all things that can be done to help us. I mean, we're very quick to write a check to another country and supply food and humanitarian aid to another country when we have people in this country that are starving. It's terrible.
Couldn't have said it. I mean, do you know we gave $220 million to Israel last week to help them with their Iron Dome. Now, I'm saying all these people in this country that are starving, people that are unemployed, and you can't come up with a bill to help these people unemployed, but they'll give $220
Well, you see, I'm not complaining about the $220 million. But then you got $2 billion that they give to, the other side, countries that want to destroy Israel. So what are we doing? All we're doing is perpetuating what's going on. Israel, for the most part, is very self-sufficient. They thank the United States, but you see, I think Netanyahu said it best. He said, look, just because you're giving us aid, don't tell us how to spend our money and what to do. At least in Israel, they built bunkers to protect their citizens and the people, while in Gaza and in Iraq, what they're doing in Gaza, they're building tunnels so they can attack in Israel, and they're using their own people as human shields, and then complaining to the UN that Israel is bombing hospitals and schools.
No, and I agree with that. I was just using that as an example. I mean, $220 million is $220 million. This country gives out billions of dollars a year. Do we ever get that back?
Never.
Right,
and
but when we borrow money, we got to pay interest on that, and that comes out of my tax dollars.
Think back to 2008, 2009, when we were losing 750,000 jobs a month, and Congress, they were debating whether or not to the bailout of the auto industry and other places. The Congress refused to vote if the amount was more than $1 trillion. Now, what some economists have said is that the government did not go far enough in providing money. I mean, all it did was print more money, okay? But it didn't go far enough to try to put a cap or do something to solve the problem. All they did was enough to bail out the banks and the auto industry, and the banks have paid us, not the banks, the auto industry has paid us back with interest already, okay? The banks, who went to jail? You know, they started all this. Who went to jail? Nobody.
Nobody.
What about over 100,000?
But there's no, being further in debt and printing up money is not a good economic solution, Mark. I'm sorry.
I never said it was.
We bailed out the banks.
They did.
And instead of bailing the people out that were stuck in these bad mortgages, they bailed out the banks and not the people. That would have helped the economy too. Let's bail out the people.
And then the banks went after the people who had the bad mortgages. Now, granted, they were wrong to grant them mortgages in the first place, but now it's like a double slap in the face, because now they're saying, okay, now we're foreclosing on your house. Well, and if that's the case and you knew that was going to happen, why did you give me a mortgage in the first place? Why did you sell me a house you knew I couldn't afford?
Because they knew they were going to get it back. The banks always win.
Because the
That's
American
the Republicans,
dream is
and
always...
I hate to be. I'm not that guy like Mr. Democrat or Mr. Republican. I'm in the middle type of guy. But boy, the Republicans refuse to close the loopholes in the taxes. They just give money to all these corporations, and it all comes out of the middle class pocket.
Well, you remember what Mitt Romney said: corporations are people too. That's according to the Supreme Court. Corporations are people too.
Yeah,
That's
well,
why
if I was a corporation, I wouldn't be paying 28% tax and them paying no tax.
Well, that's because the corporations have, they have these accounts in the islands where they don't have to pay tax on them, or they move their corporate headquarters or manufacturing overseas, where they pay foreign workers pennies on the hour compared to what they would have to pay Americans. I still remember when the government passed the bailout, and a lot of people said, instead of spending all that money, why not take the population of tax-paying members, divide that into $1 trillion, and give everybody a one lump sum check? For that kind of money, people could pay off their mortgages, they could pay off their cars. The money would be back in circulation in no time.
And that was my absolutely, that's exactly what I was saying. If we would have bailed out the people in those bad mortgages, the people that were in debt, whether it be credit card or whatever it may be, I understand people make bad decisions. But to bail the banks out and then to go back after the people for that money after we just paid them with our tax dollars, and now they're going back after the people, so they're getting twice.
You know, Charlie, pretty soon we're going to see Christmas sales in July, okay? Because that's what it's become. We do now. It's, you know, as soon as school ends in June, right away, 2 weeks, there's a hiatus, and then you see back-to-school sales, okay? The summer just started, back-to-school sales, all right? The bottom line is, you know, I mean, at least when I was a kid, because I'm much older than you, when I was a kid, you know, you had Halloween, and then you had Thanksgiving, and you never saw the Christmas rush start until Macy's parade, where you saw Santa Claus waving, and all of a sudden, it was Christmas time. Now, Santa Claus might as well be dressed up for Halloween and start pushing his sales Halloween time. You know, I mean, it just never ends.
And, I mean, they do Valentine's Day. I mean, you do Valentine's Day, I mean, it's in November.
That's true. So true.
Here in Colorado, it's a very strange environment here. It's completely different than, you know, back east.
In what way?
Hello?
You there?
Charlie? Oh, in what way is it different in Colorado?
Well, we have Christmas in July now. We have the people are they are almost brainwashed here to think that living here in Colorado is a better way of life, and that the cost of living is a lot lower here than it is anywhere else in the country. And it's really not the fact. I mean, food, clothes, anything you buy is pretty much the same as back east or on the West Coast. The only thing that's cheaper here than the major cities is real estate taxes. But they get that money back on their automobile taxes. When you register a car, if you buy a new car here, it costs you, $2,000 to register your car. So,
wow. Well, think about this for a second, Charlie. In Alaska, when many years ago, when they were working on the pipelines and everything, okay, if you were in that industry, you were drawing a tremendous salary, okay, tremendous salary. Cost of living was based upon that industry, so people were paying through the nose for everything. Now in Colorado, with the legalization of marijuana, okay, there's a high tax on that for non-residents, and then an ordinary tax for people who live in Colorado. But you're going to see with all that money floating around, the cost of things is just going to go up because they think, now the key word is think, they think that people are bringing home more money in their paychecks, and they're not. If you're not directly involved with the growing of marijuana, the stores that sell it, etc., then you're not making the big bucks. You're just an ordinary worker, and you're forced to pay those kinds of prices.
Well, since they legalized marijuana, the homeless rate has went up here quite a bit. There was an article the other day that it was up 10% from homeless people just moving to Colorado so they can buy marijuana legally. And they're all over the streets of downtown Denver.
I think Ann mentioned that a couple of weeks ago. She happened to say that. I do remember, that with the influx of people who are coming in because they want to register as residents so that they could pay the cheaper rate for the legalized marijuana, but you don't have any place to put them. You just finished saying that real estate is cheap, but the bottom line is, between...
That's
Oh,
the
it's
real
not.
cheap. I mean, the houses go from anywhere. The average house is probably around $250 and up. For
Well,
Okay. Charlie, did we lose you?
No, I'm here. It just seemed to break up a little bit. You there?
So the houses are $250 and up.
Yeah, $250 and up is the average housing here, and the apartments are not much cheaper than Queens. I mean, they're $1,500 for a 2-bedroom, or $1,700 for a 2-bedroom apartment.
Really?
Yeah, it's all major corporations. These aren't owned by people like me and you that have a 2-family home. They build these complexes. They're almost like low-income housing type complexes that we would have in New York, and they rent them out for $1,800 a month. For like a 2-bedroom. Studio is no less than $1,000.
Well, the small builder, and I use the word small in quotes, the independent builder really is almost no more. They may initially, buy the land, but then, a corporation comes in, buys the land from them, and they hire the construction company who bought the land in the first place to build apartment buildings and homes. And you have these businesses that are really making a big killing, once again.
Absolutely.
The big problem used to be back in the day, people could afford to pay rents, but they couldn't afford the down payment on a mortgage, and they couldn't afford the combined income to get a mortgage. And we find that to be the truth. Some people are paying $2,000 to rent when they would be paying less if they bought an apartment or a house and put some money down, okay, and it would be something they would own.
Yep.
But, say la vie, huh? The problem is, listen, we can complain all day about everything. But Mark, myself, you, Charlie, we don't have the solution, just like the politicians don't.
But you see, what Charlie's saying, what I'm saying, and what you're probably thinking also, the politicians are in office. They can find solutions to these problems if they really wanted to. But I don't think they want to.
Of course they don't want to, because the money...
I think they'd rather perpetuate what's going on here.
Pocket. They're all crooked.
Well, that's why I said my idea of a perfect government, get rid of the IRS, get rid of almost all the non-essential, what I call non-essentials.
Well, that's the key. Who gets the call which agencies are non-essential? Can you name 3, like Governor Perry? He only named 2. Or Herman Cain, 999.
That's not a bad idea. Don't make fun of it. That's a really pretty good idea.
Hey, listen, Herman Cain was his own undoing when all these women started to come forward, all of these guys.
It doesn't take away from the idea of 999. Not a bad idea. I think we should do is just have a sales tax. That's it. Nothing else.
Well, the Republican Party was pushing, I remember, a flat tax. If they could arrange between Democrats and Republicans that everybody pays a flat tax, okay, probably the country would be in much better shape instead of all these people with offshore accounts that aren't paying anything.
No, see, again, with a flat tax, you could hide money. If you're using just a sales tax, if you're buying something, you pay for it. And that's it. There's no getting away from it. Anything you buy, you pay a tax on. And if you buy a car that's $100,000, then you can pay luxury tax on top of it. You don't pay tax on food. You don't pay tax on clothes. And that's it. Everybody pays tax.
I wonder. Does a resident of a nudist colony pay tax on clothes? Maybe only on the shoes that they buy, because that's the only thing they wear.
That's fine.
Hold on. Ann has something to add.
I want to know what you guys think about today's update with the DEA paying the Amtrak secretary $854,000 over 20 years to obtain information that they could have lawfully obtained themselves for free.
Unfortunately, it's whatever you can get away with. I have to say right now I'm in the dark about that. So I didn't hear anything. I'd have to read it in tomorrow's paper.
Well, can you enlighten us a little bit?
Yeah, please.
Enlighten them.
Oh, yeah. So apparently, for 20 years, there was a secretary who worked for Amtrak who was getting paid by the DEA $854,000 to give them information about train passengers that the DEA lawfully and rightfully had the right to actually obtain for free on their own through the law enforcement division. But instead, they figured they'd take the easy route and just pay this secretary this almost $1 million.
Well,
it's just amazing.
Almost $1 million over 20 years.
Yeah, it doesn't work out too much, and I get that, but really,
it's not a lot of money.
$50,000 a year, so.
But the bottom line is, I guess somebody saw a way for a sweet deal, and they brought it up to the DEA or to Amtrak, and they said, "Gee, that's a great idea. $50,000 a year. That's not a lot of money for us." So
yeah.
They do it.
But I think what it shows is that all of these various administrative agencies that are supposed to be responsible for watching over us, our security, and all this other stuff, they actually need people to hold their hands as well. They need babysitters watching over them as well, because
them, right, Ann? And who's watching them?
Right, exactly.
Well,
I mean,
the FBI is too busy watching the CIA. The CIA is too busy watching DEA.
And NSA is busy watching the world. So
yeah.
Nobody gets anything done.
Yeah, exactly.
But,
and that's the problem. They're not actually catching the stuff that's going on because they're all too busy running around spinning in their chairs. Unbelievable.
But the worst thing about it, if we were put into a position of authority, we would do no better.
It's true. You may start out in politics very altruistic and idealistic, and in order to get elected, you cut deals, and when you do get elected, these people come around to collect their due, and then you become no better than the people that you just, put out of office. Unfortunately, that's the way it works.
That's why there should be term limits. There should be no such thing as a career politician.
Not in one position, anyway.
If they could have term limits in the presidency, you're right. Why not have term limits in Congress or in state offices instead of having these people that have been serving for 30 and 36 years or whatever it is, okay? In all honesty, they do not know what it's like to punch a clock and put in an honest day's work.
Who's that guy in New York, the old man?
The one in Albany, the state.
No.
Who, Rangel?
Yeah,
Charlie Rangel.
Charlie Rangel. He's been around forever, 40 years or something.
Well, you know why somebody like him gets elected? First of all, because he's staunch liberal. He fights for his constituents, and because he's been in office for so long, they know what they have. So the person you have is better than the person who you don't know anything about, who's running against him.
That's why my whole thing is 90% of the people get voted back into the office they were in, and the approval rate is only 10%. It's just, in Europe, they'll vote out everybody. The whole party will go out.
And that's usually what happens when the president, when the president gets a no confidence vote, okay, and he runs against, somebody from another party. The whole slate is put up for vote,
And they put in all new people. And, these days, living standards in a lot of the countries are better than ours now. We're not the top number one anymore. Or two, or three.
I don't know. I do know, however, that New York City is no longer in the top 10 as far as desirable cities in which to live. It's number 11.
That's because there's less crime here.
But the funny thing is, Washington, D.C. is listed as number 1.
Least desirable?
No, most desirable. Okay, maybe because that's where the action is. They're talking about young people, all right? So, and I think Houston is number 3 and San Antonio is number 4.
Yeah, but why would Washington, D.C. be number 1? Aren't there, a lot of violence in Washington, D.C.?
Because most people who work in Washington don't live in Washington. They live in the outskirts. So the bottom line is they're still considered Washington residents, okay? But look, if you're looking for a fast pace in politics, that's certainly the place to live. It would go without saying.
Now, if you live in Manassas, you're a resident of Manassas, not Washington, D.C. Just like you're a Nassau resident, you're not a New York
City resident. Exactly.
So it's not. I don't see what the attraction of Washington, D.C. It's got a lot of very, very poor neighborhoods.
So does New York.
Probably worse than New York, I think. Violence, I think, is worse than New York.
I mean, I just finished saying Houston, I think, was number 3. Okay? Houston has had their share of violence over the years. Whenever you watch these, not that I watch them that often, but whenever you watch these cop shows or whatever, they're always talking about Houston, with violence.
Guy will come out with a gun and shoot you.
Yeah, open carry.
That's it.
I'm waiting for the day in New York when you go in to make a deposit in the bank and the guy behind you has a gun on his holster and a rifle slung over his shoulder, and he's making a legal withdrawal, but you don't know if he's there to rob the bank or what he's there to do,
I don't know.
Scared the hell out of me.
Charlie.
I'm here.
Yes.
I think any final remarks from you guys before we move on?
No, I think I've said my piece.
Yeah.
Well, Charlie, it was a pleasure finally meeting you.
Yep, good to meet you also.
All right,
Feel
Charlie.
free to call again.
All right, Charlie.
All right.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, I can hear you good now.
Yeah, I know. I picked up the phone.
Oh, okay.
We're doing this show back in the Stone Age again. It works better than the other way. But you were able to hear me the whole time, right?
Oh, I could hear you.
You
just couldn't hear us.
Yeah, I know. We couldn't hear. We couldn't hear. I have no idea what we heard. We didn't hear anything, and the tech department couldn't help us. They didn't know what was going on, so we just went the old way, make a phone call. Anyway, this was a pleasure having you on, and thank you. And I hope you guys
I will talk to you guys
get a
soon.
chance to listen. Yep, and don't forget we'll be on Friday, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, and hope to hear from you then. Thank you again.
Thanks, brother.
All right, good night. All right, that was Charlie from Denver, a former resident of New York, but you could probably tell by his voice. And now he's a resident of Denver. The legal state for pot, smoking. And who knows? I wonder if having legal pot would increase or decrease violence. Everybody can go out and buy it. You don't need any kind of pushers or anything else. But then, would you still go out and rob people so you can go ahead and be able to pay for it? I don't know. I can't really say. I'm not sure what would happen with that. And we got Marc is back with us now.
I just wanted to. I know with everything that's happening today, I meant to say this earlier, but we were so messed up. I want to give a shout out to a few people. My friend Ed, the one who's recuperating from hopefully leukemia. My friend Sandy, who has MS, and my friend Carol, who you might remember as a longtime follower and someone who calls up our show. Today's their birthday.
Happy birthday!
I would like to say a big happy birthday to these people. I hope you had a great day. As far as, well, I won't say it because I don't want to embarrass them, but...
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dr. Tinkle. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dr. Tinkle. Happy birthday to you.
Okay, that was the Beatles singing Happy Birthday to You.
What better way to celebrate your birthday than having the Beatles sing to you?
Exactly. You can't beat that.
But once again, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, a day of joy for those people, but a sad day for the world with the continuing tragedy in the Middle East between Hamas and Israel, between ISIS and the innocent people. The atrocities that ISIS is perpetrating. And, of course, the passing of Robin Williams, whether it was ruled officially a suicide, which it seems that way, but we can't say for sure. Once again, I say suicide is a temporary solution.
No, it's permanent.
It's a permanent solution to a temporary problem. That if but unfortunately, when you act impulsively, you really don't think logically, and that's why you're driven to do what you do. So, terrible thing, a great loss, a comedic genius. What can I say? Robin Williams, rest in peace.
Amen. And, I don't know if anybody's heard today. One of the things that I heard, which is really a tragedy, I heard that ISIS took some children and just cut them in half. And that's just horrible.
I certainly don't understand that at all. Not at all. What purpose does that serve?
Well, I'll tell you one thing it does. It makes people scared as hell, and nobody's... arguing with them. I mean, when they put up the chopped heads of people, the Iraqi troops just dropped their weapons and ran. They were afraid. These people, are horrendous, and they're committing real terror. And as I said, they're scaring the soldiers and their opponents.
Well, between you and me, it didn't take much to scare Afghan soldiers.
Afghan? Iraqi.
Well, them too.
Afghan, you can't scare.
Well, the Iraqi soldiers, okay, I put them together with, unfortunately, the Afghan soldiers who just killed that major general. You know, the guy was inspecting troops, and as we have unfortunately seen before, one of the Afghan soldiers or the police turned and just haphazardly fired his weapon, and that major general was killed. And I'm not saying that that's any more a tragedy than when anybody else gets killed there, any other American. But it just goes to show you that these people don't want to fight for themselves, okay? They can't expect that any president is going to send American young men and women.
They're not looking for them. They're fighting the Americans, these people that are shooting these people. You got to remember. This is Al-Qaeda. This is the other groups that are in Afghanistan fighting the Americans. They oppose us.
That's not what I'm saying. You just finished saying how the Iraqi soldiers abandoned their weapons and their tanks because of the atrocities. What I'm saying is that you can't expect Americans to risk their lives for people like this who don't want to defend themselves. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, because you're mixing up Afghanistan, which is completely different. You're talking about Afghanistan, which is a completely different story.
Well, in both places, you know, you find we are in the midst of leaving Afghanistan, yet any deaths that you read about are always about Afghan soldiers or police turning their weapons on American soldiers.
Because they don't like us.
And then you read about Iraqi soldiers and police doing the same thing.
No, they're not. They're not shooting us. They're running. Two different things. You can't compare the two. One, you have people who believe they're fighting against us, and the Iraqis are just running away because they're afraid.
Well, you know something? I'd be afraid too.
Exactly. I mean, what the hell? You know, you see these guys coming over and just chopping people's heads, shooting them, and doing all sorts of nasty things.
I mean, and then they interview children, you know, young 12-year-olds and 14-year-olds who are backing ISIS, and they say they're giving themselves over to them. This is what I want to be when I grow up.
Well, number one is they don't. That's all they know,
and they'll never grow up.
And number two, if they don't say that, they chop them in half. So they have to say it. I don't think when ISIS takes over an area, you either join them or you die. There is no in between. Just like the Nazis, they marked the homes of the Christians, and that's it. You know, they're gone.
You know, we lose sight of the 12 million people who were killed in Nazi concentration camps. 6 million, of course, we know are Jews, but the others were political undesirables, Christians, gypsies, you know, homosexuals, you know.
Well, there were like 50 million people that died in World War II, so it was a pretty tragic war. And, you know, 30% of the people supported Hitler, they say. And those 30% are still around. And Hitler was training people in the PLO on how to eliminate. You didn't know that? Hitler was working with the PLO and the different organizations to eliminate all the Jews, and they would be in that area, and they would be there, and they were going to let them run the Middle East.
Well, I mean, you came from that area, so I certainly am not going to dispute this with you. I never heard that, but I'm not saying it wasn't true.
Listen to some of the radio shows. Now, again, if the radio shows are also wrong, then I'm wrong. But I've heard it more than once in different places that the Nazis were training certain people. And I believe it was the beginning of the PLO. They were training them on, how, terror, and they were promising them that they would be controlling the Middle East. They gave them their goals. Fortunately, the Nazis lost. But there's still plenty of people who just
Yeah, but
hate.
the war was continued once Israel was made a state, and unfortunately, 66 years later, it continues, and as Charlie said, there will never be a resolution to what's going on in the Middle East. Unfortunately, I don't think young Israelis and Arab and Palestinian children will ever know peace in that area.
We can hope. All we can do is hope. But as long as we got people like ISIS, Hamas, Al Qaeda.
And the funny thing is, Al Qaeda are considered
moderates.
Moderates compared to the ones you've already mentioned there. I mean.
Actually, Hamas is considered moderate compared to ISIS also. They're afraid of you eliminate, Hamas. Who's going to take over? ISIS. That'll be much worse. I don't even know why the Hamas keeps shooting up the rockets. They know they're not very effective, but I think they do it just to show their presence. I don't know. I don't understand it.
I think they just want to disrupt.
Well,
that's what they just want to disrupt.
That's
things.
what a terrorist does. It
Yeah.
Makes life uneasy for people. Anyway, I think we had a interesting show.
All things considered.
We don't quite know what did or what did not come across. I see we still have a couple of people in our chat room.
Now, let me ask you, when we finally sign off, will we be able to listen, or we can't because we're using an alternate means?
Oh, no, we can listen to everything. That's
we just can't do anything with the first 40 minutes.
I have no idea what was taped or what wasn't. We're going to have to go actually check out. The lady said there was nothing done for the first 40 minutes, whatever. When we started the last time with the music, that's when the show started.
And then it came on again, remember? We were busy, we were talking, and then all of a sudden, our friend, there is no heaven, there is no hell.
Oh, that was just because we pressed the button.
Oh.
He doesn't go on unless we press it. It's not an automatic thing with him.
I mean, who knows? He may have a mind of his own, too.
Exactly. I want to say hello to our guest in the chat room. Guest 8762 and looks like S51093 San.
Well, in any event, whether the guests are in the chat room or Charlie and Ann or anyone else who was listening but never had the courage to get through or maybe tried in the first 40 minutes, we want to thank you for staying with us, especially those who did stay with us, even now, I mean, it might have been difficult for me to even stay with the show if I wasn't on it for the first 40 minutes if I heard nothing.
Yeah, well, no, they heard stuff. We didn't hear anything. They heard everything. That's the strange part.
They heard you say you couldn't live without me?
All that stuff, yeah.
They did hear that, huh?
Oh, yeah, they heard the part that says, I love you, and
oh, man.
Let's have sex afterwards. Everything they heard.
Felix, it's not funny. It's not funny.
Not with you, I'm talking about.
Well, it's just not funny.
But I'm not talking about with you.
All right, okay. Let's get back to serious matters here, folks. Again, we opened the show, and we'll probably close it by discussing Robin Williams. Again, what can you say? He had his own personal demons. We all do. We all face them in different ways. Some of us manage to get over it on a daily basis. For other people, it becomes all-consuming. You talk about not only a genius as far as comedy is concerned, but a committed family man. Not only did he raise 2 children, in fact, his daughter, Zoe, I think, turned 25 a few days ago. But if you recall, when Christopher Reeve had his accident and he died, and shortly after that, within 5 years, Christopher Reeve's wife passed away from cancer. Robin Williams and his wife took it upon themselves to bring Christopher Reeve's son into their home and raise him as their own, okay, because he was very close with Christopher Reeve. He met him in Juilliard when they were both going to graduate school, okay, right here in New York. It's not always, not everyone would do something like that. Let's put it that way. They gave him a support group, a place to live, love, and I believe, if I'm not wrong, that Christopher Reeve's son would be about 24 or so right now. I think he was about 14 when his mom passed away, and that was almost 10 years ago. Again, this is a guesstimate. I really don't know. I'm a very poor judge of age and remembering certain things, but certainly a tragedy for this young boy, having lost both his parents and now losing a surrogate father, especially in this way, while his own father, Christopher Reeve, was fighting every day to survive. Unfortunately, Robin Williams, possibly, we say because we don't know for sure, dead at his own hand, okay?
Exactly. They say that's what it appears to be. He was, he choked to death.
Which, according to the news, said, well, he might have hanged himself. I don't know. You could also choke to death by putting a plastic bag over your head and sealing it the bottom. I mean, look, who knows? We really don't know. It doesn't make a difference. The bottom line is the man is dead, and it's a tragic loss for all of us.
And it shows, money isn't everything.
No, that's so true. It's funny you should say that because I'm reminded of a poem that we all learned in elementary and junior high school called Richard Cory. And I know I mentioned it many times before on the show. It begins when Richard Cory walked downtown. We people on the pavement looked up at him. He was a gentleman from soul to crown, clean-shaven and imperially slim. And it goes on to list all of Richard Cory's attributes. And then the very last lines are, then one fine day, Richard Cory went home and put a bullet through his head. And as you just said, Felix, money can't buy happiness. You don't know what goes on in someone's life unless you've walked in their shoes. You don't know what demons they carry around with them. And the bottom line is, if we were to put all our problems into a hat, we'd probably select our own problems because we don't know about anyone else's problems and we are only familiar with our own. So, great tragedy. And at least I want to close on a positive note once again, wishing my three friends, Ed, Sandy, and Carol, a very happy birthday on this tragic day. I know it may put a damper on your birthdays, but this is your day, okay? And I want you to know that it didn't go unnoticed here on the Coffee Club.
On behalf of Dr. Marc and myself, Felix, I want to wish everybody as good of a week as they can have. And remind you that on Friday, the rebellious Reverend Doc will be meeting you at 9 o'clock Eastern Time. And I'm sure we'll be talking about a lot of the same topics because they do cover religion also.
Exactly, and I wouldn't be surprised if we use the same method because it seems to have worked.
Maybe. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for listening. We're not going to play any silly music or do anything else to end the show. We're just going to say good night, everybody.